Hello, my loves. Hello, hello, hello. My name is Dustina. This is Spiritual Boujee Astrology, and we're going to take a look at the astrological transits of June 23rd through June 29th. Now, when it comes to the last few weeks, I was very clear about something. There's something about the vibration of the things that are coming to light, that are getting revealed, that are sliding into place, that are becoming a part of the new normal, that are becoming a part of the new awareness, specifically from June 8th to this week. And I said there's something very connected to the time frame of June 8th to June 25th, the new moon in Cancer. On June 8th, we had a conjunction between Mercury and Jupiter, and it's the only conjunction of these two planets that is happening while these two planets are hosting the eclipse axis. The north node is in Pisces, the south node is in Virgo, Mercury and Jupiter signs. And on June 8th, we had a conjunction before the two planets changed signs and brought forth an instigative new energy. Now, over the course of the last few weeks, that instigative new energy had a clouded vibration to it because Neptune has had a heavy hand. So there's a lot of things that needed to come to light that we were not aware of before. There were a lot of decisions that need to be, made and brought to the forefront and pushed into acceptance that were not previously on the table. They were not previously considered. A lot of new needed to come through. But upon the layers of the new that have come through the last few weeks, it's like as soon as something new hits, there's also that immediate response of, okay, but what now? What next? What else? What are we going to do? Where's the rest of the story? And that can be a lot for people to consider. As we go through this week, we're going to become a little bit more accustomed to the what now, what to do next, where to go next. Certain meetings have happened over the last few weeks. Certain judgments have been made the last few weeks. Shifts in responsibility. Who is in charge of what? Where are we going next? There's somewhere in the idea of we've landed. We've landed into something new. And as we go through this week, we're going to have the new moon in Cancer. It's going to be a new moon conjunct Jupiter. And again, Jupiter's had a very heavy hand with how parts of this month has went. We had a full moon in Sagittarius. That's Jupiter's sign. That coincided with Jupiter changing signs. Now we're going into a new moon, finalizing the square between Saturn and Jupiter, finalizing the square between Neptune and Jupiter. We're going to have a new moon conjunct Jupiter this week on the 25th. New moons usually mean new beginnings. There can be revealing of certain things. And I feel like there's going to be certain decisions that come to light that really come into focus and become accepted as the new norm. Now, the human effect is some of this is already underway. It's already in process. We've already made the decisions of grandma or grandpa having to, get nursing care, move into a nursing home. We've already made the decision to open a store, and now we're just trying to try out and see what works and see what fits. We've already made the decision to fill out that application, to go to college, to go in this other direction. We've just been waiting for the acceptance. We've been waiting for the response. We've been waiting for the follow up, the follow through, the rest of the story. We needed the judgment. We need the decision. We needed something to come to the forefront. And in a lot of ways, it's very much time for something to get revealed. Now, over the weekend, specifically on Sunday, we had a square between Saturn and the Sun. Saturn is in the higher authority, Saturn in Mars's sign, but Mars has finally changed signs. And there's a shift in the dialogue, a shift in the rules, a shift in policies, a shift in the strategy. You're going to hear me say strategy a lot. And that shift needs to be pushed forward into how people need to express it, how people need to be seeing something now, how we are going to progress from here. And we're kind of coming to a bit of a close in certain shifts in regards to the responsibility. And we're going to allow for certain things to happen naturally from here based off of that. There's a couple reasons why I'm saying that. I'm really reading the layers to the astrology, but it really comes down to after the square between Saturn and the sun, Saturn is slowing down. And once we get into July, both Saturn and Neptune will turn retrograde. Saturn's retrograde will start directly after the full moon in Capricorn, which we're nowhere near yet. But again, for certain people to no longer push certain judgments, then we have to allow certain things to land, to be seen, to be expressed. Again, we went through the weekend through a square between Saturn and the sun. And it is still going to be a very dominant energy going into Monday. So for a lot of people, the human effect is when we get into Monday, there is going to be a timely decision that we are making for ourselves or it is being impressed upon us. And for a lot of people, there's a deliverance to it. And that's specifically a word that came to me when I was writing out all of my notes and the transits and everything. I got specifically to like the Sun Jupiter conjunction, the new moon, and the word that kept coming through was deliverance. Something must arrive. Something must be revealed. Something must come to light. Something must be expressed or heard in a new way. There's a deliverance to this week. There is an arrival to this week. And for a lot of people, it is the closeout of the recent transitions. One of the things that I've said very dominantly over the last few weeks is there's bittersweetness in the vibration of things have to come to a close so something else can begin. You have to separate from this job so you can go start your new business. You have to graduate from high school so you can go have your hot girl summer and then go to college. Like I'm going with the process. We have to make the decision of moving grandpa out of the house to put him into the nursing home. Bittersweet, something must come to a close so something else can begin. And now we're more transitioned into the beginning, that new vibration, the new parts, the timeliness and the responsibility of certain decisions is finally reached its peak. And now we're more aware of certain things. And by making the decision, committing to the decision, accepting the verdict, the judgment, the whatever from them, because sometimes we don't make the decision, it's impressed upon us. It allows for our shift in the awareness. It allows again for the new part of the process. It allows again for the new normal to really start to hone in and manifest into what's going to be happening from here. Now, for some people, there's different cares and treatments, quite literally. I've had so many conversations still with people over the last month of, things that got disrupted during the retrogrades are now coming to the surface. And we've still been dealing with like those symptoms and the health issues and the new diagnoses or like the troubleshooting of what's wrong with me. Well, we got to take it back a little bit and figure it out. But we do. We get an idea, we get a goal, we get a trajectory. The deliverance is now being aware of this new trajectory and how we're going to progress forward throughout the summer. And the biggest thing I'm going to remind everybody is the way that we end June, which this is the last full week of June, the way we end it, specifically the end of this week, includes Mercury entering shadow. That means all of the changes that we've made throughout the month of June have landed us into a new arena, a new place, a new arrival, a new way of thinking, a new way of doing something. And I can immediately tell you, whatever we're committing to is going to have layers to what we accept and change throughout the rest of the summer. I'm going to remind everybody again later that I warned, but that's for another time. So let's get into the transits and let's get into Monday. Now, whenever it comes to Monday, I'm not going to show it quite yet. I just want to be clear about one thing. When it comes to Monday, a lot of the transits are in the overnight hours of Sunday night going into Monday. So a lot of people are going to have a real hard time sleeping Sunday night. Just be aware of that, because there is going to be some judgment, some things coming to light. Again, we've got like this wave towards responsibility, and our minds are going to be busy. We're going to have a lot of things going on. And the big thing I want to put into perspective whenever it comes to this part is, now that the moon is in Gemini, it's in Mercury's sign. And over these next few days, both the moon and Mercury are going to be in what's called mutual reception. The moon is in Mercury's house, Mercury is in the moon's house. These two are impacting one another. Whatever new information is coming through with the moon in Gemini is really solidifying something that is starting, because the moon in Cancer is, Mercury in Cancer is Mercury in an instigative sign, a cardinal sign. This is a startup sign. Whenever it comes to the vibration of Monday, Tuesday, and parts of Wednesday, they're leading to something that is going to come to light, that is going to get broadcasted, that is going to get exposed, that is going to get announced quite literally later in the week. And if you have time to wrap your head around that, that's going to be good. But there's an inspiration in action that is really taking shape over the course of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And I want people to be aware. Now, our first transit that is going on started the night before on June 22nd. It is continuing into June 23rd. So from 11:30 p.m. on Sunday to 1:30 a.m. Central Standard Time on Monday. That's why I got this at 12:30. Saturn is going to go through a sextile to the moon. But I'm going to remind everybody, Saturn is still in this square to the sun. There is information about what has been revealed, and what this revelation, this judgment, whether it's harsh or light, this deliverance of certain responsibilities, this shift in the mindset of like, I want to progress from here from now. So if I keep going this direction, I can't be tied to this. There's going to be conversations about how that progression is going to go. And there's a lot of mental energy again, just like last week going into this week, there's a lot of mental energy again. But whenever you have the moon in an air sign, the mental energy is real. And there are certain considerations that must be expressed, and it must be understood regarding the elder, Saturn, from an elder, from an authority figure, from a boss, a certain responsibility that must be projected or distributed or given guidance over. And whenever it comes to Saturn sextile to the moon, that's what that feels like. Now, between 12:30 and 2:30 a.m., so just going to bump this an hour, Neptune is also going to hit the sextile to the moon, and Neptune is also building its actual square to the sun. This is going to go exact in the overnight hours. So again, there's a lot of energy that is kind of developing in this overnight that can make it very difficult to sleep. There can also be the physical manifestation of symptoms in certain ways. If it's not our minds being super busy or us having like hard conversations with certain people, then it can also be like the downloads or it can be the inspiration, or it can be the symptoms. But I still think people are going to have a hard time sleeping, just to be clear. Now, Neptune is going to hit the sextile to the moon between 12:30 and 2:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. And then the next thing that's going to happen goes in between 2:30 and 4:30. So I'm going to get this to 3:30 because this is going to encompass all of them like the most exact. Pluto is going to hit a trine to the moon. So here's Pluto, 3 degrees, 17 minutes. Here's the moon, 3 degrees, 25. The moon is also going into a square to Mars. So this has got some tension to it. This has got some frustration to it. This has got some weight to it. This can be something that is like, because of a neglectful situation, because of an abusive situation. I'm going off of Pluto stuff here. Because of a traumatic situation, because of something from the past, it can now be inspiring a decision of action moving forward. Now, this can still feed off of that Saturn square to the sun that was exact on Sunday, But considering at this moment, we actually have Neptune square to the sun being exact, there can be a lot of confusion about why we're in the situation that we're in. Or it can be because of the effect of something, the symptoms of something. It can also be the lies, the fraud, the deception of something. Again, inspiring an action, pushing an argument of some sort based off of a past trauma, a past fear, a past frustration because of the trine with Pluto. This really does feel like it is a continuance from whatever was going on Sunday, being in all the overnight hours. But the human effect is this can also be something that plays out in the actual daytime of Monday, because all of the transits to Monday are in the overnight hours for us here in the States. So either some of us are having a really long night, some of us are not sleeping, or some of us are going to be getting up real early in the morning and dealing with like this rapid effect of things. And then afterwards, it's like sitting in that vibration because we don't necessarily know what to do and we don't know what we don't know. Anytime we have heavy Neptune transits, we can feel in a funk. We can feel like we're in a freeze. We can feel like we're in a fog. And as much as we have an action that needs to be done or tensions that's going on, there can still be the confusion element of that fogginess with Neptune involved. So there's going to be parts of Monday, Sunday and Monday, just going to be clear about that are not going to be clear. Sorry, it's the truth. They're not going to be clear. There's going to be confusion. There's going to be frustration. And if you want to charge full steam ahead, that's not going to be an easy thing to do over the course of Monday because of that vibration of Neptune. So I would say that for some people, when it comes to Monday, there's not going to be a whole lot of things going to plan. There's going to be some things that are very confusing, very, very blindsiding. And as much as we're trying to put some things in order and communicate some things, and our minds are super busy because the moon is in Gemini, we still don't know everything. And a lot of us, some of the actions that we're charging into, like what we're trying to step into, we're going into charts unknown. We're going into things we've never dealt with before. We're going to be meeting with people that we don't actually know. It's like cold calling. You have no idea who's on the other. You're just dialing a number. You have no idea who's going to answer the phone. You have no idea how the conversation is going to go. You don't know what you don't know, but you have no choice. We still have things that we need to do. And we can be a little bit hesitant on Monday because, again, Neptune is a very heavy part of the transit. Now, we're in that vibration all day long. Do not expect quick, fast, in a hurry type things whenever it comes to Monday. I don't feel like we start to pick up speed again until after the new moon, just to be clear. But we're going to get into Tuesday. Now, when it comes to Tuesday, the moon's going to be in Cancer. I'm not sorry. The moon's going to be in Gemini most of the day. And the first thing that we're going to deal with is going to happen like right after that midnight time frame. So I'm going to get this to 2:30. And what's going to happen is Chiron, 26 degrees, 35 minutes, is going into a square with Mercury. Chiron is the wounded healer. How a wound has come through, how we've been wounded in the past, what we've been dealing with, how a wound is inspiring the conversation as to now. How a wound or how a solution, if it's not the wound, it's a solution. This tends to be the two paths that I tend to see with Chiron. What kind of solution we can deliver to someone and give guidance towards. Now, again, the moon and Mercury, they are in mutual reception right here. So part of the new conversation, whether it is about the wound or about the solution and how we fix something, there's something new in this conversation that hasn't been considered before. There's something new in this conversation that reveals different parts of how things went before. Sometimes you can hear somebody else's perspective about how they were hurt in a certain time in their life. You can hear a certain perspective and it completely changes the way you saw the whole storyline. It's kind of like talking to your parents about your trauma and it coming from your perspective. But then whenever you hear what was really going on, what they were dealing with at the time, and that you were just kind of in the collateral damage area, It changes your whole thought process because as an adult, we can process things from our childhood in ways that we couldn't whenever we were kids. That's that whole inner child trauma healing thing. Finally, processing the wounds that we could not process before. This feels like some conversations about processing wounds, or again, the guidance towards how we fix something. That could be a little bit more mundane, but there's something about the wound and care and consideration and becoming mentally aware of things that we did not know had happened in the past. And it can kind of shift some of that mental, emotional intelligence. Again, the awareness is shifting. I like it in the mundane sense. I don't know that we're going to see big things in the collective sense. I feel like this is a lot more of that mundane. Now, over the course of the day, we also have the sun going into its conjunction to Jupiter. And this is the other reason why I had that deliverance word kind of hitting me in my intuition when I was writing the notes. And anytime we have the sun's conjunction to Jupiter, it kind of goes a couple of different ways. Now, this is going to go the most exact between 9:57 and 10:22. So I'm going to get this to 10:30. I'm going to leave it alone. They say in ancient astrology that anytime the sun hits a conjunction to Jupiter, that it's supposed to be the luckiest day of the year. Well, that's fantastic. In the more modern sense, I don't always agree with this. I really don't. I think that there's going to be things that come to light. I think that there's going to be things that are more about the revealing sense. Now, whenever it comes to the sun, this is a form of the ego. There's going to be things that we don't know. There could be some ego checks. Now, whenever it comes to Jupiter, can it have to do with wealth and prosperity? Absolutely. Jupiter being in this exuded, sign of Cancer where he's said to be elevated, it could have like financial gain to it. That is real. However, this is also a sign of care and nurturing and consideration. And there can be things tied to the doctor, the guru, the teacher that needs to be seen, that needs to come to light. And in so many ways, whatever is coming to light will really be a part of that new normal because we're literally about 24 hours away from the new moon that's going to be conjunct that Jupiter. This Sun Jupiter conjunction is in a sextile to that Mars while still separating from a square between Saturn and Neptune. There is something that's meant to come into light, come to focus, that is meant to be revealed. There is something that is meant to come into the forefront. And for some people, it will feel like luck. For other people, it's going to teach them something. It is the guidance. There's something that we don't know. And by having certain things revealed, it can again help us understand how we heal from something, how we reshape our mindset towards a past trauma, how we're finally able to overcome certain power struggles. And it can be inspirational to how certain actions will continue from here over the course of the summer. I do like the Sun Jupiter conjunction. There's just the other elements that tells me that there's layers that I don't know that everybody's going to have like the wealth prosperity vibration around this. I feel like a lot more people can actually have something more tied to revealing of care, lessons, doctor, guru, teacher. Some of you are going to have things revealed from the masculine, or you're going to have something revealed about the elders and in all the layers of everything. Okay. Now, the sun is hitting that conjunction again to Jupiter early in the morning. It is the most exact between 9:57 and 10:22 a.m. Central Standard Time. It is a part of the vibration all day long, so it's not specific to the hour. We're building to it all of the 23rd going into the 24th. We're in it all day of the 24th. We will still be in it going into the 25th. Now, we're going to keep this going. Over the course of the afternoon, of course, the moon's going to be in Gemini all day long. That's just kind of normal stuff. We have this extra element where between 4 and 6 p.m., so I got this now at 4:30, Chiron is going to hit a sextile to the moon. Now, again, the moon and Mercury are in mutual reception. Around that midnight time frame, Chiron hit a square to Mercury. Now Chiron is hitting a sextile to the moon. These two are actually feeding into one another. It feels like there can be something that is in a part of that revealing process all throughout the day, that it changes our opinion. It changes how we looked at something before, and it can be very revealing about how we're overcoming a past trauma, how we're moving forward without allowing certain things to impact us. That's one way of dealing with it. Here's a more negative way to deal with this day. Something does get revealed, and it's a truth we're not willing to accept. We don't necessarily want to believe that somebody else did go through some kind of trauma, or we don't want to believe that somebody else that we care about is capable of causing a wound for someone. That could be the other thing. Now, again, versions of the truth, that was a big part of last week's energy. We can still be dealing with it now. And it really comes down to how your own mental processing can work, because part of the energy of these last 2 weeks is setting the stage for the version of the truth that we're moving forward through all throughout the rest of the summer. So be aware of what's being told to you, what you're telling other people. And if you're not being honest, it will come back to bite you. But we're not going to talk about those dates yet. We're just going to stay focused on this moment. Okay, continuing on. After Chiron hits the sextile to the moon, there's not a whole lot going on until we get into that evening time at 10:45 p.m. Central Standard Time. So I got this now at 11:30. That is whenever the moon is going to go into Cancer. Now, as soon as the moon goes into Cancer, we are in new moon vibration. And again, this is going to be a new moon loosely in that square between Saturn and Neptune. This is going to be in a new moon that is in a full conjunction to Jupiter. This is a new moon that is also in a sextile to Mars, giving guidance as to how an action is going to go from here, where we're going to start changing the rules, the procedure, the strategy. There's a lot of new. And whatever starts to happen throughout the whole time that the moon is in Cancer, throughout the entire time of the new moon vibration, remember, parts of this new moon goes back to whatever was going on during that full moon in Sagittarius. We needed that vibration of something coming to a close so something else new could begin. We needed the bittersweetness of the last few weeks so something else can now start. And now we're kind of in that landing vibration of this new way of caring for ourselves, this new form of consideration, this new way of building abundance, this new way of manifesting, this new way of doing something new as we go through the moon in Cancer this go round. Okay, getting back into that transit. Now, the moon is now in Cancer. We're going to go straight into the 25th, of course, because whenever it comes to Wednesday, between 12:30 and 2:30 a.m. Central Standard Time, I'm actually going to bump this to 1:30. This is going to encompass both. Between 12:30 and 2:30, Saturn is going to square the moon. Between 1:30 and 3:30, Neptune is going to square the moon. So at this moment, you can kind of encompass both of them. There can be something about the truth, versions of the truth, judgment, versions of why they made certain decisions, how the effect of something on our elders is pushing in this new form of care, because Saturn can have to do with the elders, how the belief of people in positions of power are fueling this new awareness of something. That can be a little bit more big picture collective energy. But this deliverance, that you're going to keep hearing me say this deliverance is encompassing a big part of the new beginning that is taking shape over the course of this middle part of the week, whenever the moon is in Cancer. Saturn and Neptune together are hitting that square. They're pushing an idea. They're pushing something forward. In some ways, we can still be a little bit hazy. There's still some parts of this we're not seeing clearly, because Neptune is infamous for blinding parts of the way that we see everything. But that doesn't mean that we're not supposed to do stuff, because we are. And for some people, the bittersweet energy is also going to be a little bit of trial and error. But that doesn't mean you're making a bad decision. Just many of us are going into uncharted territory, for what it's worth. Okay. Now, between 3:30 and 5:30 a.m. Central Standard Time, that is whenever the moon is going to hit its conjunction to Jupiter. This can be hope. This can be luck. This can be something that's speaking towards confidence. Again, the doctor, the guru, the teacher. Again, it can have to do with prosperity and wealth and manifestation. Again, it can have to do with some kind of lessons. Whatever was kind of coming to light was delivered and brought forth over the course of Monday and Tuesday are literally feeding into whatever is happening in the new moon. And you can see that the new moon is almost exact right here. It's actually exact at 5:32 a.m. Central Standard Time. So again, this new moon is in a conjunction to Jupiter. Something coming to light, something getting revealed, something that has been revealed over the last few days. It's like as soon as it comes to light, as soon as it is accepted, as soon as we can work with it, it is boom. This is it. This is what I want. This is what I'm accepting. I don't need to fight over it. I understand. This is the reality. This is what I'm going to continue forward with from here. We have a new moon in a cardinal sign, instigative sign, shit starter sign. Okay. Moving along. Oh, whenever it comes to that new moon's energy, remember it is also in that sextile to Mars. That's more into that 5 to 7 a.m. time frame. That again, something new is going to be inspiring the action in our new strategy, in our new process, in our new way of doing things. So I got to include the Mars stuff in there too. There's so much of this that speaks to that need for transition in the strategy, in the concepts, in our communication, in the planning. And for some people, that's going to be kind of hectic. And again, there's going to be some parts of this week that are kind of clouded, like, I don't know what I don't know. But that doesn't mean you're in a bad position. There can be a lot of emotions kind of coming up to the surface, whether that's like prideful emotions or if that's like manifestation level of like, I'm inspired to do something, or if this is just like the insecurities coming to the surface, that can be there too, especially whenever you're going into uncharted territory of being a little wonky with the first few steps that you take and being a little bit more susceptible, that's the right word I want to go, to criticism. A little bit more susceptible. Like we can get our feelings hurt just a little bit faster. But I mean, it is what it is. It's Cancer season. We're going to keep it going. After the overnight hours into the morning, there are no more direct transits to the 25th. We're in certain vibrations all day long. We're still in the Sun Jupiter stuff. We are still building to the Sun's exact sextile to Mars and putting forth a certain kind of energy. We're building to other things, but there's no other direct transits to the 25th because, again, it's all in that overnight hours going into the morning time. Now we're going to get into Thursday. We're getting into the 26th. Now, when it comes to the 26th, I feel like we're a little bit more able to get out of the foggy vibration, even though the moon's still in Cancer, and we can still have the emotional vibration that we kind of talked about a minute ago. But all in all, it does not feel like a negative energy. So we're going to bump this to 4:30. And at 4:30, what we're going to have is Uranus, 29 degrees, 28 minutes, going through a sextile to Mercury, 29 degrees, 28 minutes. Now, when it comes to this vibration, there is something that needs to come to a close again, so something else can begin. A little bit of excitement so something else can be seen differently. Because over the course of the day, Mercury is going to transition from Cancer to Leo. And once Mercury goes into Leo, that's where he's going to be until September 2nd. Yeah. There's a whole lot of consideration towards something that is about to come into light and come into focus very, very quickly. And for some people, whatever is about to be spoken about, whatever we're finalizing, whatever we're wrapping up, I just got to wrap up these one or two more things so I can go, put it out there. So I can upload this to Facebook, so I can upload this to social media, so I can send it to the press, so we can get the paperwork filed. That can be a big part of it too. But Uranus hitting that sextile to Mercury feels like, again, part of the strategy and part of the planning, because shortly after this, not only are we going to deal with Mercury going into Leo and being there for the rest of the summer, basically, but Uranus is going to go into Mercury's sign. We're just a few weeks away from this. So there's something about the strategy and the planning that is literally a precursor. This is a foreshadowing transit to parts of what we will be doing once Uranus moves into Gemini. So there's a different part of the vibration that is starting to set stage. And there's something being communicated about this transition right here. that we're about to wrap something up so something else can begin. We're about to go do something different so something else can begin. And that's going to be a big part of Thursday, that continuous theme. Okay, keeping this going. In the morning time, we're going to get this to, let's see, 9:30, and that'll kind of encompass both of them because there's two transits going on. Between 8:28 and 10:09 a.m. Central Standard Time, this is when the sun is going to go into a sextile to Mars. Put a pin in that. Simultaneously, Venus is going to go through a sextile to the moon. This is motivation. This is motivation. Now, the sun is about to start hosting Mercury. Okay. Mars is in Mercury's sign. We're trying to transition. We're trying to get something launched. We're trying to get something accepted. And this feels like a very communicative, connected, networking type of vibration that can allow for certain green lights to happen that we might not have been able to put forward over the course of the last few weeks. We can get a little bit more going in regards to like some of the new stuff that we're wanting to take forward and that we're starting to launch. The next phase of like what we're doing in our new normal and how we're like pushing something forward. This speaks to parts of that. The sun's sextile to Mars is a motivation. The sun is in that nurturing position. Mars is in that strategic Virgo, rules, strategy, process, procedure, scheduling, travel, but I mean logistics of the travel, the planning of the travel, the planning of certain events, the planning of something, the process, the rules, the procedures, the contracts, the commitments. But in addition to that, Venus in her home sign, the moon in its home sign, it's like whatever we're starting to strategize and push forward is being received well by multiple parties, is being received well with multiple people. Like there's acceptance. Even if there's not acceptance right here at 9:30 in the morning, over the course of the day, there is going to be acceptance. Now we're going to keep this going. Mercury is going to enter Leo. I didn't actually write the time down. Bad, Dusty. Why did I do that? That's going to be somewhere in that 2:15 to 2:20 time frame. I really didn't write this down. I'm sorry. I just wrote down once Mercury goes into Leo, he's going to be here until September 2nd. And it's Mercury now in the sun's sign. So this feels like an arrival. This feels like an announcement. This feels like something being communicated. This feels like something that is going to be addressed. That feels like something that has the need for supportive judgment, but in this moment, it doesn't feel like the supportive judgment per se, but it feels like it's going to lead to that over the course of the next few days. So hear me out as I continue. Oh, Mercury is going to enter Leo. Now, over the evening time, between 6:30 and 8:30 p.m., Chiron is going to hit a square to the moon. Now, considering just 2 days before, we had Mercury in this spot where the moon is now. Simultaneously, Chiron did make a sextile to the moon while it was in Gemini. So parts of the evening time with what gets expressed, what is being announced, what is coming to light, what is getting debuted, what is getting planned out, what is being expressed, can go back to some of the conversations that were happening on Tuesday, specifically whatever Mercury was in, where the spot where the moon is now. So it can go back to earlier in the week, but now it's like, hey, did you follow my lead? Did you listen to what I said? Did you take my suggestion? Did you take my advice? Yes, no, maybe. Here is the decision that has come to light. Here is the decision that has been revealed. So part of this vibration can literally speak to what was going on 2 days before. And then on the overnight hours between 11:30 on the 26th and 1:30 a.m. on the 27th, so I'm going to move this to 11:30, Uranus is also going to hit that sextile to the moon, having some type of exciting vibration, having something being confirmed that we're willing to start taking something forward. We're willing to try something new. We're willing to start doing something. There is, again, there's foreshadowing in parts of this vibration of Thursday, Friday, the 26th and the 27th. That's really giving light to some of what we're going to be dealing with over the course of the summer once Uranus goes into Gemini. This is like commitment foreshadowing vibration right here. Okay. Now, again, Uranus is hitting the sextile to the moon between 11:30 p.m. on the 26th and 1:30 on the 27th. So I got that right here. As soon as we get into that moon in Leo in this vibration, that is really how we're going to go into the start of Friday, is the moon going into Leo. As soon as the moon goes into Leo, it's separating from that sextile to Uranus, but it's hitting that connection, that, why am I going blank? The conjunction. Okay. It's hitting that conjunction to Mercury. There is something being talked about. There is something being instigated. There is something being started. One part of the conversation started the day before on Thursday. It's like you go into a meeting, even if you don't know everybody in the meeting, and you pitch the sales idea and you're waiting for the call back. It feels like a lot of people, you get the call back really fast. You get the next part of the commitment very, very quickly. When the moon goes into Leo and hits that conjunction to Mercury, this feels like a commitment. This feels like a planning. This feels like something that it's necessary for it to start in this time frame. And again, we're building to Mercury going into shadow. So we need these first few commitments for us to understand some of the changes and the tests that we're going to be dealing with over the course of the rest of the summer. So this is very timely situations that could not have happened sooner and should not happen very much later than where we're at on the screen. So again, we're going into that moon in Leo. Now the moon went into Leo at 1:06 a.m. Central Standard Time. It immediately hits that conjunction to Mercury. That's the most exact between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m. Over the course of the rest of the overnight hours, Saturn is going to hit a trine to that moon, and so is Neptune. Saturn's trine to the moon is going to be the most exact between 3 and 5 a.m. Neptune's exact transit is closer to 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. So I got this at the 4:30. It's in these overnight hours. I feel like there is the chance of, again, the strategy, the communication of going and talking to people, going and meeting with people over the course of the day on Thursday. For some people, it's going to be over the course of the entire week. That's the human effect. And there's sometimes that we try to make something happen sooner than it's going to happen. You can meet with somebody and still have a good meeting, but if they got other stuff going on, you're not the first and forefront on their mind. I feel like we start to get some approvals of something, some go ahead, some green light vibration over the course of Friday because of this trine between Saturn and Neptune. Now, again, Saturn is hitting the trine to the moon first, Neptune as well. In the early morning hours between 5:30 a.m. and 7:30 a.m., so I got this down at 6:30, the moon is also going to hit an opposition to Pluto. Now, this can be a little bit heavier for some people. It can be going and meeting somebody that's in a position of power, going back and talking to somebody from the past that has caused trauma or abuse in some way. You're turning the corner and you're going to run into somebody, or it's having something that you have to face that is kind of frustrating, that can be a little bit of a trigger of fear. If you have some kind of commitment over the course, like you make the sales pitch and they're saying, yes, I'll buy. Just humor me as I use this as an example. The next morning, when it's time to write up the paperwork, and if you ain't done this before, you can have a little bit of, what is it? Like you're imitating the situation. Like, oh, I am so out of my words right now. What is it? Oh, that we don't feel like we're where we're supposed to be, but you are. I'm not giving the word correctly. There's actually imposter syndrome. Oh my God, imposter syndrome. If something happens really well, really quickly, you can be excited about like the potential of the judgment and the decision and the commitment, but we can also have that hit of like imposter syndrome. Or you can go tell somebody and it's like they trigger that imposter syndrome. I'm like, I made my first sale. I started my new job this week and I made my first sale already. I got to go sign this contract. We're going to go do this new thing. And then it's like you tell somebody and their response to it is just like, oh, well, you think you're something now? You think that makes you somebody? You think you're better than people? Like that had nothing to do with it. No, I made my first sale. I did my commitment. I did something. I'm proud of myself. And because you're proud of yourself, like you trigger something in somebody else. be aware of that part of the vibration. And again, parts of Friday, as much as it can be the commitments of something, it can be foreshadowing of some additional things as we continue. Now, we're in a real positive vibration, I feel like, all day long with the moon being in Leo. We don't have any more direct transits to Friday until we get into the evening time. And the next one is going to go the most exact between 10:39 and 10:57 p.m. And this is when Saturn, again, is going to hit that exact trine to Mercury. Saturn is rules, authority figures, the bosses, the CEOs. Like there's something about the guidance and direction. But this is fire to fire, passion to passion. Saturn is giving a green light. Saturn is giving direction, and not in a harsh sense. It's more in the sense of like an attaboy. You can do this. You have my green light. You have my blessing. I see what you're doing. I see what you're trying to put together. You should do it this way. And it feels a lot more instigative and a lot more productive. Even if you've had parts of like the imposter syndrome throughout the day, I feel like by the evening time, like there's something again that like shores up the momentum that we were feeling before somebody like triggers some kind of frustration or insecurity, or they said the wrong thing that like kind of soured your mood a little bit. There can be those little hints throughout the day on Friday of somebody trying to sour your mood, but it doesn't have to necessarily be that way. Saturn's full trine to Mercury, we're building to it all day long. It goes the most exact in the evening time. Do you have to get the full commitment, go ahead from somebody in the evening time? No, you can be working on it all day long, but it's like you send the documents and you don't get the signatures back until your client is back home from dinner. Like, oh yeah, I got to log into my email and sign that real quick. I got to do this real quick. And that can be a part of that trine vibration of like the tangible part of the commitment with Saturn's trine to Mercury. Okay. Now we're going to get into the 28th. We're going to get into Saturday. And over the overnight hours between 6:42 a.m. and 7 a.m. Central Standard Time, so we get this at 6:30, Neptune is also going to trine Mercury. So you got Neptune here, 2 degrees, 9 minutes. Here's Mercury. Now, some of the guidance from the night before, some of the arrivals from the last few days, some of what has come to light, there's still going to be that element if you're doing something for the first time. So I'm thinking of like your first job, your first sales job of some sort. Like every step is new. You haven't done this process before. So as soon as you get the paperwork back, it's back in your email. You're like, okay, what now? I don't know. Crap. Who do I send this to? Where does this go? And there can be a little bit of confusion in parts of the day in the negative sense, but for other people, there can be a lot more of a nostalgic part of the day. If there's confusion, don't be surprised by that. But for a lot more people, it can be a little bit of nostalgia. It can be something inspirational. It can be something woo-woo. It can be something that speaks to imagination. When Neptune goes into that trine with Mercury, and again, this can have a lot more passion tied to it because these trines have to do with the fire signs versus in previous years when Neptune's been in Pisces, it's been a lot more emotional. This feels more empowered. This feels more passionate. This feels more like that belief system and telling certain people things that they've never heard before, that they don't know about, they've never been a part of. Like it's still a part of like a communication vibration. And there can still be some confusion, or it's like filling people in on stuff that they don't know. This is a great transit to go like thrift shopping or go do stuff that we've never done before, just to kind of get our minds out of it. Like I feel like a big part of Saturday needs the unknown and it needs distraction versus trying to get like full commitments of accomplishment and achievement done. Unless we're trying to create something and it's more of the artistic stuff, I don't feel like we're not going to be building a full house on Saturday. Let's be clear. Okay. Now, over the course of the day, the moon's going to be in Leo all day long. Mercury is now in Leo. We're kind of working through that funk. We're working through any kind of confusion. We're learning the stuff that we don't know. We're experiencing something we've never experienced before. There is direction. There is guidance. And once we get into the evening time, between 6:30 and 8:30 p.m., so I got this at 7:30, Venus is going to go into a square with the moon. Now, this does not have to be heavy, but it can be a questioning. It can be like a gas up situation of like, you did so great today. I'm so proud of you. There's so much going on. You've built so much. You've made so much. And there can be positive consideration whenever Venus hits that square to the moon. There can be direction, but it's more along the lines of like aesthetic direction. There can be things about like food whenever it comes to Venus and where we want to go next, how we want to do something moving forward, where we want to be, and how we're trying to enjoy the vibration. Because again, this feels like very confident, the moon in Leo, gas it up, let's do something different, let's feel a little bit better. This does not feel anything like the first part of the week. It just doesn't. Okay. After Venus is square to the moon, there's nothing else going on. There's not a whole lot to Saturday. It feels just like kind of lingering vibration of letting things happen just naturally, not pushing for anything. Now we're getting into Sunday. Now, the moon is going to be in Leo all throughout the overnight hours between midnight and 2 a.m. So I got this at 12:30. Chiron is going to go through a trine with the moon. We can still be talking about like our past wounds and how things impacted us, what we've been doing in our healing process, and where we feel like it's helping our confidence now, where we're feeling the boost of certain things now, where we weren't necessarily feeling the boost before. Now, this is in that midnight time frame for some people, this can still be a part of Saturday night. I'm just showing you based off of the transits. It's the most exact between midnight and 2 a.m. At 2:46 a.m., between 2:46 and 3:05. So I'm going to just put this at 3:30. Mercury is going to hit that opposition to Pluto. As much as we can have some confidence things going on, we're trying to do some really good things throughout the day, there can be something in the overnight hours going into Sunday that triggers an insecurity or triggers a next part of the strategy. Please note how I'm saying that. As we go through the day, the moon is actually going to go into Virgo. It's not in Virgo quite yet, but it is going to go into Mercury sign. And that's where my focus is. There can be certain conversations, whether it's going to be late on Saturday, early on Sunday, in the overnight hours is whenever it is the most exact. It's just that our minds can be going to like the worst possible potential, our worst fear, going somewhere and seeing someone that triggers certain insecurities, that triggers like the energy towards an old power struggle. There can be a trigger in the vibration, or there can be some kind of news that comes through that scares the crap out of somebody. I hate saying that, but with the Pluto vibration, it's a real possibility. Mercury hitting this opposition to Pluto. Over the course of the entire day on Sunday, Mercury is entering shadow. So be aware of whatever is being discussed in this Mercury-Pluto opposition, because it feels very, very important for how we're going to deal with, again, the rest of the summer, how we're going to deal with the things in July. And July is when Mercury is going to go retrograde. So I keep warning about it because somebody's going to have the nerve to act surprised. Now, from this forward a little bit more, between 5 and 7 a.m. Central Standard Time, this is whenever Uranus is going to hit the square to the moon. Again, there's something that needs to be achieved, something that is coming to a close, while simultaneously allowing something new to begin. I've done something for the last time. Now I want to try to start doing it this way. Again, Mercury is still in this opposition to Pluto whenever we're talking about this next part. And at 6:45 a.m. Central Standard Time, that is whenever the moon is going to go into Virgo. Again, the moon is going into Virgo immediately following Mercury's opposition to Pluto. Can we still have things tied to imposter syndrome? Absolutely. But can we also have things that kind of trigger certain insecurities that are challenging to us? Yes. Now, some people can say certain things and it brings out like one critical thought process of yourself. But when Mercury hits the opposition to Pluto, it almost feels like a challenge of, I'm going to prove somebody wrong. I'm going to do something that nobody's ever done before. I'm going to do this thing that you don't think that I can do. I'm going to try. And there is something about Mercury and being in that opposition to Pluto, and now the moon being in Mercury's sign, that once this energy is delivered, once it is understood, once it is known, it encompasses all the rest of the day on Sunday, to be real. but even how we go into Monday and Tuesday of next week, which therefore is taking us into the 1st of July. And there is a part of this vibration that is a part of Mercury entering shadow. So some of us might be challenged in this vibration to do something we've never done before. And that vibration can also be something that doesn't completely stick later. It's like we are going to be forced to make some gear shifts, but we need this initial vibration of starting something. We are going to have to start something in this vibration. Okay. The moon is now in Virgo. As soon as the moon goes into Virgo, it's going to go into a sextile from Jupiter. Now that is going to be continuing as we go forward. That's going to be closer into that afternoon time frame. So this is going to be between 2 and 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. Actually, I got this, I put it down as till 4:30, just to be clear. But here's Jupiter, 4 degrees, 32 minutes, and here's the moon. Again, last Sunday, so the week prior, on the 22nd, there was a sextile between Jupiter and Mars. We just had a new moon conjunct that Jupiter. So anytime we're still dealing with some of the Jupiter stuff, we're still dealing with like the vibration of that new beginning and the new connections and what those new connections are going to mean in this Jupiter part of the vibration. There can be guidance, there can be acceptance, there can be talks, there can be the things with the doctor, the guru, the teacher, there can be things in regards to the treatment and the symptoms and how it's impacting another side, kind of like that follow-up and the feedback of like, hey, okay, so we're a week into something, is it going well, is everything okay, how's your grandma, how's your grandpa, how's this going, what's going on? And Jupiter feels like guidance and support in a number of ways. As we get into the evening time, specifically between 7 p.m. and 9:30 p.m., the moon is going to hit this conjunction to Mars. This can be a little bit more antagonistic. It can be a little bit more disruptive. Mercury is still in that opposition to Pluto, had its exact opposition in the early morning hours. There can be something that seems like an accident right here, or it can be the discovery of something that has been disruptive, the discovery of something that is tense, or it can be a meeting of something that leads to additional actions, that leads to some of the additional things that we are going to be doing. For some people, there can be some shakiness in the vibration. For other people, there can be like pivotal notion in this vibration. There can be a commitment to certain things. The moon hitting the conjunction to Mars, though, this can be an accident. Not pretending that it's not. Or there could have been an accident with Mercury opposite Pluto, and we don't get the news until later in the evening that there was an accident. This feels accident vibration. Violent, maybe. Argumentative, probably. Accident is the first word that keeps hitting my ears. So there's that. The moon hitting the conjunction to Mars again between 7 p.m. and 9:30 p.m. And then in the overnight, going into the overnight hours between 10 p.m. and midnight, the sun is going to hit a sextile to the moon. Now, the sun has still been in a sextile to Mars over the last few days. It's been pushing, so to speak, not in the harsh sense, but in the empowering, uplifting, like more communication, more planning, more strategy. And the moon hitting that energy with the sun right here can be like the next round, the extra layer, the additional guidance over something, or it can be something that is picking back up off of what we were dealing with the sun Mars sextile that happened earlier in the week, specifically on Thursday, the 26th. So there's layers to each of these days in so many ways. Like there's something that feeds into from one to the other. And I feel like once we get past some more of this Neptune energy, but also once we get past a lot of this new planets changing signs, going in a different direction, we're going to get into things that are going to be a little bit more cohesive, especially whenever I do my forecasting, because I can feel it just like you guys, like every week is something new. Every day feels like it's something new. There's something new on the agenda. There's something new in the horizon. There's something new in the planning. There's something going on that we weren't dealing with before. And I feel like we're getting a little bit past the newness after this, per se. I mean, there's still going to be some new to July, but I feel like that new in July is like a continuance of this. Honestly, I do. I feel like it's a continuance of the things that we've already been putting into place all throughout the month of June. And I want people to be very aware of the decisions that you are making over the course of this weekend. So the 27th, the 28th, the 29th, and going into the 30th. I want people to be real aware of those decisions, those commitments, those ideas, those things that we are doing, because they are a part of where we will be doing the troubleshooting change this summer. Now, if you understand that you are making certain decisions with the idea of changing something, of doing something different, then this can be very strategic energy, and just knowing that some things will probably still not go to plan. But if you're going in uncharted territory, there's not always a plan. Or we are doing something with the idea of like, we have no idea what the outcome is going to be. So it's called troubleshooting for a reason. This works, this doesn't. That's okay. But there's something very dead set about those decisions after the new moon. They're a part of the new moon per se, but specifically the ones afterwards, once Mercury goes into Leo. Because that feels like a broadcast. That feels like an announcement. That feels like a debut. Is everybody going to like what's going on? No. Are some people going to hate the fact that there's been so much change? Absolutely. Because there's so many people, you fixed signs, I don't like change. This is not your year. It is what it is. There's something new coming into focus and coming into light, that it has taken us weeks to be able to get to this point of, this is it. This is what we're doing now. This is what we're going to be working towards. This is a part of our goal setting. This is a big part of where our focus is going to be. And for some people, as we go through this week, we will end this week feeling inspired. We will end this week feeling motivated. For other people, we will end this week feeling disrupted, feeling judged, and feeling frustrated. For other people, there is clarity. That's going to be harder to find, but the clarity is more about the direction. And for a lot of people, there is news coming through this week, a new plan of action, a new thing coming forward, a new way of doing something that is a part of the strategy that we're working on throughout the entire summer. And there's something very much about Mars in Virgo. It feels like a lot of strategy for people and change in regards to how we've been doing something, prior processes and procedures, while creating new ones in the meantime. So strategic is the best word. But for us to really start to focus on that new strategy, we have to get through the deliverance of this week. We have to get through the revelation of that Sun-Jupiter conjunction. We have to get through the revelation of that new moon conjunct that Jupiter. And again, whatever is coming to light and coming into focus, this new dominant idea that is coming through, it could not have come through sooner. Now, there can be certain things about this new moon that ties back to the last full moon. I don't even want to say old, the last full moon. And the whole transition of these last few weeks is that bittersweetness of things having to come to a close and come to an ending so something else can begin. There's still one or two ways of the coming to a close this week, but there's a lot more vibration speaking to what's coming in new, what's coming to light, what's coming into focus, and what's the bigger part of the new in the process versus what's been released. And there's still even parts of the new that's coming through that I can't see clearly. So even I have stuff that's going to be coming through like, oh, that's how that's working. Great. Okay. Good to know. Good to know. Okay. I love and appreciate every single one of you. I will talk to everybody very, very soon. Hit me up with questions. Hit me up with concerns. Subscribe.